Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It is December 5th, 9:30 Central. I am joined today with one of our outstanding NATP staff members, Misty. Misty, thanks for being here today again. You are always a delight to have on. You have so much knowledge and information to share. We love having you. So we are here to talk today about preparing specifically for tax preparers, preparing for the 2023 tax season. So believe it or not, it is actually time to start that. But before we talk about next tax season, Misty, can you give us just a quick recap of some of the biggest challenges of last season? What are some of the things that we tried to forget? Remind us of those.
Well, the biggest thing that we've just heard from members, and I know NATP has been out in front about it as well, is just the delays with IRS processing and then all the implications that, that domino effect. So, did the S selection that I made get approved? Yes or no? What am I supposed to do next? Those were really one of the big things that we saw. And this is even too coming through a research department, what members were telling us. And then you also had erroneous letters and penalties being assessed when they shouldn't have, and all these different things that were going on. So, and on top of that, you're trying to get through the IRS to get that clarity. So I think that was the biggest struggle that we heard. We didn't have a lot of retroactive law changes, which is usually is what gives us our big hiccup. It was just trying to get the job done and getting answers. So I think that was the biggest thing we heard. And it's still kind of going on. I haven't heard as much, which is good. So hopefully we can start out our 2023 filing season a little, on par to what we're used to.
Good. Yeah. Um, it was kind of like you said, the aftermath of the backlog, which we're still dealing with a
Yes.
little bit, is my understanding. But it's
hmm
not as bad as it was. Does that seem accurate?
I'm not hearing as much now,
Okay,
that I'm saying that. I should
of
knock
course.
on wood because who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of days.
Of
So,
course, of course.
yep.
So that keeping that in mind, we wanted to give everyone who's listening and watching this some
Mhm.
tips and almost an action list, like a to-do list of things tax pros could and should be doing now in December to prepare for next tax season. As we know, things get really chaotic and wild
Mhm.
as soon as that January um, opening happens. And so, what are some things that people should be doing right now?
Well, one, and I know this is easier said than done. So get your office organized. And what could that look like? So if you have an organizer, go through, make sure it's updated for what you're going to see on those 2022 returns that you're filing. So we've had retroactive law or 1 year law changes. So make sure you're updating it so it's accurate and also add to it. So, if you're not asking about virtual currency, there's a question on the 1040. Make sure you get that in there as well. So it's getting that ready to go because that'll hopefully help with some problems during tax season. So you're not having to go back and ask some of those questions where if you just got it right up front, it would have saved, sometimes a half an hour of going back and forth with the client. And we all know that half an hour, it's never a half an hour. It's 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and it's breaking up what you're working on. So just trying to get things set up early on. Other things too, as well, watch for your software updates and get familiar with the 2022 package. So there are some form changes that we're seeing. So the 1040 had a slight change. There's going to be some more lines in there. Take some time, take a look at it, understand how your software is working now versus later. I know we've seen some releases for 2022 already. So if you're getting in there now, you can kind of get those nuances under your belt and not have to worry about that, when the returns start flooding in. Another piece or a tip that you can do as well now versus later is look at setting up those online accounts for your clients. And when I say that, ask your clients to do it and give you permission. Then you can log in and you're, again, not waiting while you're working on that return. We all know that whenever you have to put a return down and wait and then pick it back up, you're spending so much more time on it versus if you have it all up front, you're one and done, you can send it on its way. So stuff like that can help out as well. And then also while you're preparing for the 2023 filing season, you also have to think about what you can do right now as well to make sure that you're not scrambling at year end. And when I'm talking about that, it's looking at, did you get your PTIN renewed? Did you check your CPE? Let's not wait until that last week in December, because hopefully by then you're gearing up for next year. And then, if you're waiting for your AFSP, make sure that you get your AFTR exam completed by December 31st as well. So there's a couple of different things. One is um, getting you prepared for 2023, but then also trying to wrap up 2022 in itself for your own things like your education.
It can be, yeah, like you said, easier said than done, but
Right.
very important. And we do want to emphasize, that get on your CPE before that last week in December. That's when everyone does it. That's inevitably when problems arise, and the
Yes.
earlier you can do it, the better. So that
Mhm.
is a good thing to emphasize, I think. So we have a lot of people who might have their own firm as well.
Mhm.
What are some things that they should be doing, specifically from a firm owner perspective, to set themselves up for the best tax situation?
Well, I look at it as simply what would you tell your clients? So if you would advise them, if they're coming into your office right now, it's looking at, okay, does it make sense to purchase that new equipment in 2022? Or do you want to wait until 2023? We all know that bonus depreciation is going to change. We have 100% in 2022 and 2023 that's going to go down. So maybe you want to buy it now. It's also looking at, you know, if you're self-employed, making contributions to HSAs, any other retirement accounts, any of those things that can actually help reduce your tax implications. So, and I think that's also when you sit down and think about it, going, well, it's everything I would tell my client to do to help them out. It's like, oh, yeah, maybe I do want to buy, a couple of new laptops this year versus next year, or, you know, um, also making sure your payroll is done and getting that all organized and your documents ready. The big thing that I keep on hearing, and looking at our Facebook groups, talking to other members, is it seems like our returns end up being last. So what can you do to kind of help with that and make it easier for you to make sure your business is on track?
It is so funny how that always happens, that,
Hmm.
you take care of everyone else and you forget about yourself, or you do your thing last. And really you
Hmm.
need to prioritize yourself as well, because you can't help others if you can't help yourself.
Yep.
So that is a good reminder as well. So, the last few questions that I want to cover, Misty, are things, communicating with clients. There could be a lot of that this coming tax season. And there will be a lot of that this coming tax season. But,
Hmm.
what are, again, talking about what people can do now, what are some things now that tax pros can communicate with their clients, to help them, more efficiently prepare for next year? So, I guess what would you recommend that they start having conversations about now?
I think one of the things that they're going to see, and even in conversations or just getting education, I think there's a lot of questions or unknowns. It seems like even talking to instructors who've been out on the road with TSUs and just getting a general vibe of what the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 actually did. So there's a lot of those provisions that impact 2023. So when you think about it, um, make sure you're educated because they're going to start asking you questions about that. So when you're in that client interview, you're working on the 2022 return. We all know that, but they might start asking you questions on, well, you know, I'm now thinking of buying a new electric vehicle. Do I qualify for that credit? Yes or no? So you want to stay on top of those. One of the things I do know with some of these credits that are coming out, the IRS has asked for comments on what guidance we want, what we need to be able to really understand what these credits are about, who's eligible, all of that. So that closed, I believe it was early December, end of November. So hopefully we'll see that guidance. So stay on top of it. So I think that's the hard part is, with 2022, we didn't have a lot of tax law changes, but people are going to be planning for 2023. Because if you're meeting with them in March or April, you're already a chunk through that year. So they may ask you some of those questions. What if I want to install Windows? What's the best way to do this? How do I get the biggest bang for my buck for these credits? So, if you have a couple of those planning tips already in mind, you can help educate them then versus we all know it's, the going back and trying to correct something that they've already done. That's always so difficult and it's harder when you're looking at that. And then also thinking ahead too, maybe you prepare the returns and you have a mid-year check-ins, things that you can do to help them get set up successfully going forward and how you can help just make both of your lives easier.
Yeah, efficiency is key, it seems, for
Yes.
everyone in this
Yes. Yep.
situation. So we have to plug membership, of course. So NATP members, have tons of resources that they have available to them, which is, key to a successful tax season. Misty, you have had a hand in creating a lot of these, and you and your team. Can you share a little bit more about what NATP members have available to them that might be helpful right now and during tax season?
Yes. So one of the nice tools that we have in the Tax Pro Monthly is your quick reference guide. And I believe that comes out in the January issue, which should be coming out shortly if it's not already out. So it is a quick reference chart for you just to check some of those inflation numbers. So your standard deduction amounts, HSA contributions, all of that. That's all in there. So it's just a quick handy dandy chart. Anything that you can have on your fingertips makes your life easier. I can't say that enough. When I'm writing material, I have the revenue procedure up because that's where I'm going to go. So instead of having to go through pages of the revenue procedure, it's literally, I think, a front and back, real easy, simple. And then also make sure to take any update courses to get ready. So obviously we have our tax season updates that I believe go through the end of this week. There might be a couple next week. We have virtual tax season updates coming up this week. And then we have what's called an Are You Ready webinar, which kind of recaps everything in our tax season updates, but then any changes that we've seen since we've written that material. So I'm trying to think back. Hopefully, we're going to have a little more guidance on some of those energy credits. I know I've been working with one of our instructors on that, Catherine Keene. She's going to be teaching. So, we want to make sure we cover that. And then any of the questions that we've seen out on the road, providing that clarification. So, those are really good tips for you. Just to make sure you're ready to go. And then obviously we do have our Tax Pro Monthly or our Tax Pro Weekly, where if there is something big, if we see that guidance issued on any of those energy credits, so your clean vehicle credits, we'll post a blurb in there at least to give you a high level overview of, hey, this is what you need to be aware of, plus a link to the actual procedure. So we try to get as much information out there as possible. And if there's anything late breaking, we've also done webinars in the past, or even a Facebook Live. We try to get as much information out there. So having that membership, you have access to a majority of this information. And we'll sometimes do it and offer it for everybody just because it's that big of a deal. So it definitely helps, especially with, like I said, having those quick tip toolkits at your hands to be able to make sure you're successful for 2020.
And I have to, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we have to mention too, our research team for those questions that are really, really difficult that you can't do a quick Google on. They are just an invaluable, resource to have on your side. They really do their best to research and get you the best answer possible.
Or even to save yourself some time. I mean, yes, there's a fun part of it coming from the research area as well. I enjoy that. But when you're in the midst of filing season and you have a stack of returns, Sometimes it's saying I can hand it off to somebody else. They'll do the work for me. You've just saved yourself potentially an hour or two of your time. Now think of
Mhm.
what you could have gotten done in that hour or two. So
Absolutely.
that's also key as well. Or let's face it, by sometimes April 10th, your brain is fried and you just need somebody to help clarify.
Mhm.
And that's fine too,
Yep.
because we've all been there. And, something that made sense in February may not make sense in April because you're just done. So,
Yes. It is a unique profession in that you get a
yes.
bunch of work in a short amount of time. So really the burnout rate is pretty high.
Yep.
So it makes
Mhm.
sense. Absolutely. Well, that is really all that I wanted to discuss today, Misty, unless you had any other tips or anything that came to mind for tax pros or words of wisdom as we go into next season.
I would just want to say good luck. I know, again, listening to members and things like that, and just working in tax practice myself, it does seem like the last couple of years have been a little bit rough. So anything you can do to make it smoother going forward is key. And, fingers crossed, no mid-year tax law updates. If
Take
there
that
are, though,
back.
I know,
We put
knock
it
on
out
wood,
there.
right? But any of that, we're here to help you. And, like I said, just take a couple of steps now and hopefully it'll help your tax season just kind of smooth out a little bit.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Misty. I know everyone watching appreciated it, and I appreciated it. And hopefully, we will have a smooth rest of the year. Thanks again, everybody, to watching. Have a great holiday season, rest of the year, and we will see you in the new year, 2023. Thanks again, Misty. Have a great day.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.